Let us begin our Srimad Bhagavatam study, starting from the third canto. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirannasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Imam Vishnupadaya Krishnapashaya Bhutale Shrivate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So Vidhura has left the palace and he is wandering around as an ascetic, dressed as a wandering ascetic. Vidhura traveled alone for many years. He passed through forests and orchards, crossed mountains, lakes and rivers, and visited scores of Vishnu temples. After seeing all the major holy sites such as Ayodhya, Mathura, and Dwaraka, seeking always saintly association, he reached Prabhasa. Unrecognized by anyone, he lived simply, depending on Krishna. In Prabhasa, he learned that Yudhishthira had become the undisputed emperor of the world. Hearing snippets of conversation between the townspeople, he discovered that soon after his departure from Hastinapur, there had been a great war between Dhritarashtra's sons, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Many of his relatives had been slain. Although not surprised, Vidura's head fell and tears pricked his eyes when he received the news. He continued westward to the region where the Saraswati flowed. He visited 11 of the most famous pilgrimage sites along the banks of the Saraswati River, numerous temples. Walking for many years, in India, he arrived at the bank of the Yamuna River late one night. There, he saw Uddhava, who almost exactly Brihaspati, the god's preceptor. Caught joy and ran up to him. Uddhava sat leaning against a tree. Because of the darkness, Vidura did not realize that he had fainted in spiritual ecstasy. Dropping to the ground next to him, Vidura embraced him finally. Uddhava slowly opened his eyes. Recognizing Vidura, he wept with joy and immediately bowed his head to Vidura's feet. Shrinking back in humility, Vidura spoke in a choked voice. My dear Uddhava, how fortunate I am to see you again. Pray, give me news of Krishna and Balaram. I know they are the original personalities of Godhead who appeared in this world at Brahma's request. Because of their advent, the whole world has become prosperous and happy. How is my good friend and brother-in-law Vasudeva? He is such a generous man and always showed so much affection for his sister Kunti. One by one, Vidura asked after Krishna and Balaram's family members. He mentioned Krishna's senior wife, Rukmini, and her eldest son, Pradyumna. He also asked after the elderly Yadu king, Ugrasena, as well as Krishna's cousin Duryodhana, one of Arjuna's martial students. He inquired about Krishna's uncle, Akrura, who had brought Krishna and Balaram to Mathura from Vrindavan. He also asked about Krishna's birth mother, Devaki. The learned Vidhura inquired after Krishna's grandson, Aniruddha, knowing that he was an expansion of the Supreme Lord. He also asked after Krishna's other brothers and sons. He named each person. He described them affectionately. Having asked about Uddhava's family, the Yadus, he inquired about his own nephews. I hear that Yudhishthira is now the emperor. Is he ruling according to religious principles? Uddhava saw the sadness in Vidura's eyes as he went on. Duryodhana was envious of Yudhishthira's opulence. But that godly man was always protected by Krishna and Arjuna's arms as if they were his own arms. Tell me, did Bhima wreak his revenge on Dhritarashtra's sons? Who could withstand his might on the battlefield when he stepped out with unpraised mace? Tell me about Arjuna, who wields the celestial Gandiva bow. That mighty hero once satisfied Lord Shiva in battle, but the great god appeared before him as an unidentified hunter. Speak also about the twins, Nakula and Sahadeva. They are protected by their elder brothers as their eyes are protected by eyelids. Are all 5 brothers enjoying themselves now? They have regained their rightful kingdom from Duryodhana. Vidura's voice softened. Does their mother Kunti still live? It was so hard for her after the great hero Pandu died. She would have gone with him to the next world, but she remained to look after their sons. Vidura hid his face in his hands and sighed. Gentle Uddhava, I simply lament for Dhritarashtra who turned against our brother Pandu after his death. Misled by his nefarious sons, he drove me out of my house, even though I was a sincere well-wisher. After adopting such an immoral course, he cannot be faring well. Uddhava placed his hand on Vidura's arm as Vidura continued. I'm not astonished by Dhritarashtra's imprudent ambitions. During my travels, I've noted that people who do not understand Krishna are greedy and never satisfied. I, however, have understood Krishna's greatness. My only desire is to render him loving devotional service. Thus, I am happy in all respects. Although the Lord comes to protect his devotees, he refrained from killing the Kurus when they agonized the Pandavas. Even when they insulted the chaste Draupadi, he did not strike them down. Some find this bewildering. They ask why he tolerated such injustices in his presence. But he did not excuse the Kurus, dear Uddhava. The Lord was biding his time. There were so many demoniac kings disturbing the world. Krishna therefore brought them together at Kurukshetra and slew them all in that great war. You know that one of the primary reasons the Lord appears in this world is to annihilate the wicked. He is not obliged to take birth like us. He does not have a material body. He is not under nature's laws. He comes out of his independent will to benefit his devotees. And indeed, all living beings. When I explain this, people challenge me, unable to understand how he does good to all beings. Let's pause here. So, sometimes we may feel like, why Krishna is letting me go through this injustice? Why Krishna is putting this particular devotee through so much suffering? Why the other people are taking advantage and why Krishna is not stopping? So, Krishna has always a plan. Krishna always has a perfect plan at the perfect time. For example, I was just thinking even simple things like a plant or a butterfly. If we force that butterfly to come out of the cocoon a little too early, it cannot fly anymore. For the rest of the life, it will be crippled. Similarly, even anything in life, if you're trying to cook rice, even if it's a little uncooked and you take it off the fire, it's, you don't feel nourished by eating that rice. You feel indigestion. Or a plant, when the flower has not completely bloomed, it's half bloomed. And if you try to take it, it'll never bloom fully. And so on and so forth. So everything has its own time. And Krishna is time. Time I am. Kalosmi, Krishna says in the Gita. So having faith in the Lord's timing is Krishna consciousness. To be conscious that Krishna is behind these situations. Just as Vidhura, also Kunti Devi is another example of a personality who she went through so many difficulties. When Pandu was cursed and they were in the forest, she patiently waited for Krishna to manifest his plans. And then the 5 children were born and it looked like the time was good. Then she lost her husband. Husband died. And as Vidhura is telling here, she could not even go to the spiritual world with Pandu because she had 5 sons to take care. Because Madri said, you will do a better job taking care of these 5 sons than I can do. You'll do more justice to my sons than I can do to your sons. Let me go into the fire with Pandu. So she didn't let Kunti go. Again, Kunti was like stopped by time to just get liberated. And she held there. She held herself there to fulfill the responsibilities. Kunti Devi is known as the Vijaya Shakti of the Lord. Just like Radharani is the Hladini Shakti, Kunti Devi is the Vijaya Shakti. Vijaya means success. So Kunti Devi represents the victory, the success potency of Krishna. And we can see what was her success. Obviously, materially, there was not much success, She grew up in she was born to Shurasena, but then she was sent as a small girl to Kunti Bhoja. And she was raised by somebody else, not her biological parents. Then she served this very angry sage Durvasa. After serving that angry sage Durvasa, somehow or another, she managed to get a boon. But immediately, as time had it, she didn't even have time to grow up. She somehow got curious and she tried to use that boon. And then she got a son. Even before she got married, she got a son even as a teenager, or even like whatever she was, 10, 11 years old. And then she had to float that little child away. And then you may see, finally she gets married to Pandu, but then Pandu also dies very soon. First of all, he gets cursed, so there was no family happiness, there was no marital happiness in Kunti's life. Then the father dies, even though the 5 sons she gets from the demigods. Time again. Then maybe they go to Hastinapur and all the atrocities happen until what we are seeing now, which led to the whole war, which killed so many people on both sides. There were only 5 people remaining on the Pandavas side, actually, other than Pandavas. So, this is game or play or Leela, which is in control of Krishna only. Time is something only under Krishna's control. What is good time? What is bad time? Good and bad are all perceptions in this world. We may say, when somebody mistreats us, we may say it's a bad time. People are mistreating me. But for Krishna, there is no such thing. He's always giving us opportunity to grow. He's always giving us opportunity to become humble and develop Vaishnava qualities. So even if we are in a circumstance when we are not given priority, we are insulted, there's an opportunity like Vidhura did. he just took it as Krishna's arrangement and left. And for us too, when we are not treated nicely, it's an opportunity to become humble. Who says I'm supposed to enjoy life? Life is meant for sacrifice. Life is meant for austerity. That's the success of life. And it is described that spiritually, success, unlike material success, we say, oh, if somebody is enjoying, having a good time, having nice things in life, it's a success, right? And Kunti, so much austerity. And so how can you call her life successful? Because she always remembered Krishna. So the definition of success is equal to the definition of what we understand as Lord's protection. For an ordinary person, our perception and limit is we're very limited to understand Krishna's protection. We think that Krishna's protection is limited. It's limited to my body, my family, my wealth, my how I'm being treated by others. So our perception of what protection of the Lord means is very much based on our level of maturity. And we think that, oh, if I'm comfortable, it means Lord is protecting me. If I'm uncomfortable, then maybe Lord is not protecting me. But for great devotees like Kunti and Vidhura and Prahlad and Dhruva and all these great devotees who wrote amazing prayers on Krishna, for them, they have a brighter, broader, bigger understanding. Perspective is different about what means Lord's protection. And therefore, they're able to compose these amazing prayers even after all the traumatic events and all the difficulties that they go through. And therefore, success is when we can remember Krishna even good and bad times. When we can remember Krishna always, that's the success of life. And Kunti Devi was a great example of that. Whereas for us, when we're very happy, we say, Krishna, here's your flower. Here is your food, bhoga. Please eat it and go, live in your Goloka Dham or Vaikuntha, happy, be happy. I'm going to go to my family and be happy. I'm happy in my family life. I'll go to my world, you go to your world. It's a kind of a mentality, right? But when in difficulty, then we go crying to Krishna and we say, Krishna, I'm suffering, I'm in pain, these things are hurting me. Please protect me, please take care of me. So that's why Kunti Devi, in her prayer says, please put us in difficulty so that you will come to us, you will rescue us. In her case, there's no question of remembering, don't remembering, because she always remembered Krishna. Good times, bad times, she always remembered Krishna. Therefore, she was able to do what Krishna told Arjuna in Gita, to be sukha dukkha same kritva labha labho jaya jayo. So she was able to be equipoised in all these circumstances. She never got elated when she got the boon. She never got elated when Pandavas were born. She never got elated when Pandavas won. She was always equipoised. And therefore, when the other side of the circumstances arrived, such as Pandu dies, and then she has to take care, and then, yes, the Pandavas won Hastinapur, but then immediately thereafter, Ashwatthama came and killed her grandchildren. And right after the grandchildren were killed, the funeral was taking place. And there she is, as Krishna is trying to leave Hastinapur to go back to to go back to Dwaraka. She stops and composes these prayers. And she doesn't even utter a word about the Upa Pandavas, the children of Pandavas being killed. She's composing prayers of gratitude to Krishna. And she's saying, thank you, Krishna, for protecting us from the Lakh House, from Bhima being poisoned. Again and again and again, you're protecting us. So she's able to actually see the Lord's hands in these situations because she's always remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna. So the good and the bad, both are seen as the protection of the Lord. Therefore, she has the ability to see that broader perspective of protection, and therefore she is the success potency of Krishna. She is Vijaya Shakti. She knows the difference. She knows how to distinguish between what is, in this world, good and bad. Both are bad. And she knows that. She knew that very well, that good and bad, both are bad. Because if we become admired by everybody, we are glorified, we are adored by people, people worship us, and then we become attached to it, and it'll entangle us to come back again in this world, and we keep expecting the same thing. It's a never-ending trap. So when Krishna makes us experience disappointments in life, it's a good thing. It's good. It makes us humble. It makes us develop tolerance. It makes us develop a sense of sense of self that is separated from other people's validation. And this is exactly what Vidhura was. Vidhura was speaking of. And therefore, injustice that Pandava is tolerated had a purpose. Krishna had a bigger purpose. The Lord's protection is not just for our own welfare, our own body, our own kingdom, our own family. The Lord wants to protect everybody. He wants us to be in a better world. So Krishna brought all these nonsense kings in one place in Kurukshetra. And then the whole massacre, he slew them all in that great war, so that there can be purification in this world of leaders. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadadmanam shrujamyaham. We should never think that people who are bullying us or insulting us or betraying us will be happy. No, they have to go through their own lessons. But what we can pray and ask the Lord is, let them not go through it so harshly. Let them go through it, sweetly or pleasantly, joyfully. Because if we want to learn our lessons joyfully, we wish for others also to learn their lessons joyfully. So the Lord has his ways to stop us from doing the wrong thing. But he will stop us because he is our eternal Father. He loves us all. We belong to him. Amai jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. He says, you're all mine. So when we belong to Krishna, you think as a good father, as a perfect father, he will ever let us fall into the wrong path. He will look, he will watch, he will immediately start giving us, pain as soon as we're thinking wrong motivation. He brings us back. That is his goal. He'll, if not this lifetime, he'll bring us back next lifetime. He's got all the time in the world. We're never eternally condemned to hell. As children of God, we are always protected by the Lord. It's just that we need to broaden our understanding of protection. And then we can go under his care sooner than later. Any thoughts, any questions? Okay. Rasastali, would you like to read a little bit?
Okay. Vidura shook his head incredulously at such foolishness. Just by hearing of all the glorious ways Krishna protects his devotees, living beings are attracted to seek his shelter, thereby achieving all happiness. Krishna's appearance benefits everyone. Even the demons he kills attain salvation. Speaking about Krishna had again raised Vidura's spirits. He reached out and clasped Uddhava's hand. My friend, please describe Krishna's glories, for that is the best way to spend our time whilst on pilgrimage. Even the universal gods are his surrendered servants. Whenever they face trouble in executing their service, they seek his help. It was in answer to their prayers that he appeared as a prince in the dynasty of his pure devotees, the Yadus. Tell me what he is doing now. Remember Lord Krishna. Vidura learns of the departure of Krishna and his family members, and Uddhava briefly describes Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. Tears streamed from Uddhava's eyes, his voice choked, and he was unable to speak. Vidura waited patiently. He realized Uddhava, a great devotee from childhood, was experiencing intense separation from Krishna. From the age of 5, Uddhava had worshipped Krishna's deity form. Even when his mother would call him for meals, he would not interrupt his worship. He had served Krishna throughout his life. Now, as Vidura questioned him, memories of Krishna flooded his mind. For some moments, he sat perfectly still. It appeared he was going increasingly deeper into trance. Tears freely ran down his cheeks, his body shivered, and his forehead became soaked with perspiration. Overwhelmed with love, in a broken voice, he tried to utter Krishna's name, Kar, Kar, Kar. Seeing these symptoms of transcendental ecstasy in Uddhava's body, Vidura knew that he had attained the highest perfection of divine love, prema. Gradually, Uddhava's consciousness returned from absorption in Krishna's pastimes to awareness of the external world. My dear Vidura, the sun of the world, Lord Krishna, has set, and our house has been swallowed by the great snake of time. What more can I say? Vidura also began to weep. He had already heard this terrible news. Unable to accept it, he had thought it was just a rumor. He wanted Uddhava to reassure him that all was well with the Yadus. On hearing the unhappy report confirmed by Uddhava, Vidura crumpled to the ground, his body trembling. Uddhava continued, "This universe with all its planets is most unfortunate, for the Lord has ended his earthly pastimes. The Yadus were similarly unfortunate, for, despite living intimately with him, despite their vast learning, they never fully appreciated Krishna's greatness. Although Uddhava understood Krishna's supreme position, he knew the other Yadus had considered him an incarnation of Vishnu. Closing his eyes, Uddhava meditated on Krishna's exquisite blackish form. Vidura, overcome with feelings of separation, sat holding his head. Krishna, Krishna, he cried. Slowly Uddhava opened his eyes and spoke gleefully. Now we must tolerate fools disparaging our Lord. They will mock, saying his disappearance proves he is a mere mortal. Uddhava shook his head at the folly of atheists who could not understand Krishna. As if to himself, he said, regardless of what they say, never can the words of deluded persons influence the intelligence of Krishna's devotees. Both Uddhava and Vidura knew that Krishna did not take birth in a material body and die like an ordinary conditioned soul. He came, he came to his eternal, imperishable spiritual body, and when he departed, he did so in that same transcendental form, just like the rising and setting of the sun. He appeared in the material world to attract the conditioned souls back to his abode by displaying his all attractive pastimes. For want of sufficient piety, materialists were not attracted to him and could not understand his transcendental position. His pure devotees, however, continued to see him even after his departure. Sometimes I hear people ask if Krishna has returned to Vaikuntha. Uddhava said in disbelief, how can the Lord take his human-like form to the spiritual world? Indeed, his earthly pastimes surpassed those in Vaikuntha. He descended in his two-armed form to show the full extent of his sweetness and power. Even Narayana is astonished by his original form of Krishna, which displays the pinnacle of auspicious qualities and beauty. You, my dear Vidura, have already experienced Krishna's charm and might. Do you remember when Krishna was honored at Yudhishthira's Rajasuya sacrifice? The gods themselves came to earth to offer him respects. Not knowing the truth about him, they considered that Krishna's incomparable attraction was a demonstration of Brahma's ultimate creative ability. Uddhava reminisced about Krishna and the gopis, the cowherd maidens of Vrindavan, and their transcendental loving affairs. These damsels enjoyed pastimes of laughter, humor, and loving glances of Krishna, who always loved to tease them. Nothing compares to their ecstatic love, which excels even that of Brahma and Shiva. When Krishna would leave there after enjoying loving exchanges with them, they were stunned with anguish and could not perform their household duties. Vidura closed his eyes and thought of the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan, the gopis, Krishna's most exalted devotees. In his heart, he saw a wonderful vision of Krishna, a disguise as a gardening maid, laughing and joking with the gopis as they gathered flowers, then suddenly leaving them. They stood like statues staring after him, their faces distraught. Uddhava's sobs broke Vidura's reverie. Alas, my heart breaks due to separation from Krishna, who is so unfathomably kind and loving. Divine rapture overwhelmed Uddhava and he was unable to speak. Vidura, who was also overcome with ecstasy, sat in stunned silence until Uddhava regained his senses and opened his eyes. My dear Uddhava, pleaded Vidura, please speak more about our Lord. You said that he did not go to Vaikuntha when he departed, but many say that he expands from Narayana, who resides there. Even the Yadus thought this way. Uddhava slowly shook his head. Krishna is the source of Narayana. He is the original supreme personality of Godhead. Mathura, Vrindavan, and Dwarka are replicas of his personal abodes in the spiritual sky. He dwells eternally in these realms in his original form as Krishna, although he is unseen by mundane eyes. When his devotees Vasudeva and Ugrasena were afflicted by the demonic Kamsa, the Lord appeared, just as fire springs from wood due to friction. When he appeared, his Vishnu expansions, who manifest the entire material cosmos, also appeared with him. Does the Lord only come to save his devotees in these three abodes? Uddhava shook his head. Although Krishna himself only appears in those three places, the all-pervading Lord manifests his Vishnu avatars in the same way wherever his devotees are provoked.
Jai. Beautiful descriptions of how Krishna manifests and how all the different avatars, it's all these incarnations of the Lord, they all manifest because of the feelings and emotions of the devotees. Bhakti is what inspires the Lord to descend. It's so beautiful. And yeah, every incarnation, it has its own sweet pastime and story and reasons why he appears in that particular form in that particular time. So everything is about bhava, everything is about the emotions. So remembering how the Lord has a power to manifest even after departing this world 5,000 years ago, and how he can descend, he descended in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. He's Srimad Bhagavatam, who has arisen as a sun to dispel that darkness. And he appears, he manifests in the form of deities and pastimes, and he manifests in the form of devotees Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't end 5,000 years ago. Srimad Bhagavatam continues in later years too. In the lives of like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes is extended Srimad Bhagavatam. And the devotees who did Sankirtan after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left is a continuation of that Leela. So right now, here and now, the Lord can manifest for us. So Krishna has not left in spirit. So Krishna is still always, he's with us. And he's waiting at the door that we will call him. So let us feel very fortunate. Let us express our gratitude that we found Krishna, or rather Krishna found us. We were lost and Krishna found us. I was once lost, but now I'm found. There's a song called Amazing Grace. So let's feel grateful for this amazing grace of the Lord and continue this study tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming with me on this journey of the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Have a great day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I'm also very fortunate to be part of this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.